Good morning, PATH family. PATH, P-A-T-H, is Parents as Teachers at Home. And I am very, very happy to be here with you today. I hope you will say hello to my good friend, Angela Valentine. She's on with me and she's going to be giving pointers to our session today. As you know, April is National Poetry Month. And a lot of times, I know when I was in school, poetry was a big part of my education. Also at Easter and Christmas time in our local churches, we would have Christmas poems or Easter poems. I remember my first poem was, and poems do not always have to rhyme, but my first poem was, "Welcome, welcome, welcome to our Easter program this morning." And so, that just gave me an opportunity as a child to get before an audience and to get rid of the fear or the fright that I may have had. So that's what poetry, that's a part of one of the benefits of poetry, is you can use simple lines, like maybe 2 to 3 lines of poetry, to help children get over their fear of standing before people. But I just want to dive into this a little more and tell you some good benefits of poetry. Poetry builds reading and speaking skills. Children learn to pay attention to the words that they hear, especially if the poem has a rhythmic flow. Now, as I said before, not all poems have a rhythmic flow. There are different kinds of poems. There's prose, there's haiku poetry, and not all of those have a rhythmic flow. But poetry is good for children, no matter what the flow is. Poetry is a beautiful form of rhythmic expression. Too often, children do not grow up appreciating poetry. If my parents and the elders in my life had not taught me about the benefits of poetry, I probably would not have a love for poems like I have now. So it can be fun, it can be engaging, and there are important developmental benefits of poetry, such as language growth, expression of creative abilities, self-expression, and once again, the development of rhythm, listening, and memorization as well. I suggest that you read poems to your younger children, and you have to read poems slow. You can't just, all the time. I'm not saying there's never going to be a reason to read a poem fast, but when you're trying to introduce poetry to children, you want to read the poems very slowly, simply because it gives them an opportunity to learn if there is a rhythmic flow. It gives them an opportunity to feel the words. So I'm going to continue with this by giving some resources and giving you an opportunity to get Joyce Burgess's Poetry Supplement, which is a list of my favorite poets, and I'm going to share that with you now. Some of my favorite poets are, and they're Black American poets, Anne Spencer, Langston Hughes, Maya Angelou, Paul Laurence Dunbar, James Weldon Johnson, Robert Hayden, Elizabeth Alexander, June Jordan, and one of my absolute favorite poets is Joyce Carol Thomas. I had an opportunity to meet Joyce Carol Thomas some years ago. One of her poems that I love is "The Blacker the Berry." My grandparents used to say, "The blacker the berry," and you say it, "the sweeter the juice." So Joyce Carol Thomas wrote a book of poems called "The Blacker the Berry." And lastly, Jacqueline Woodson. So those are a list of my favorite poets. And, you know, I expand that list to Alfred Lord Tennyson, you know, with The Highwayman, Anna Green Gables volumes, poems, you know, sometimes within the midst of reading the novel, you may run across a few poems as well. Phyllis Wheatley, you remember she read poems before George Washington. So these are just some of my favorite poets. I want to move further and show you some resources that you can get while you're training your children with poems. Some of the resources are Children of Promise by Charles Sullivan. And if Angela can show that resources, the other one, there it is, Children of Promise, edited by Charles Sullivan. You can get this at Amazon.com if you choose to get it, but I own it as well. I own a copy of it as well. And it's just a real good book of art, poems for young people to explore the African American experience. The next resource is Pass It On. It's an African American poet. It's a book about African American poetry for children, and it's illustrated. It's written. The author is Wade Hudson, and it's illustrated by Floyd Cooper. Now, Floyd Cooper is an amazing illustrator. So as children, as you're sharing these resources with your children, let them pay attention to the drawings or to the illustrations in the book as well. So that's my little spiel on poems. I encourage you to continue the month of April with poems with your children. Parents, you have to introduce poems to your children because they're not going to do it on their own. And I guarantee you that it will benefit them in so many ways, as listening skills, how to be creative in their writings. And a poem doesn't have to be long. It can be anywhere from 3 to 5 lines. I mean, it can be longer because, as you know, there are poems throughout the Bible, there are the Psalms, and there are verses and verses and verses. And if you feel like going on, that would be fine. But something as simple as roses are red, violets are blue, there's no one in this world like you. And I just made that up. Because when you think about it, when you think about poems, you want the child to be creative. You want the child to think about their world, where they are. And I would encourage you to start reading poetry to your children as early as 2 or 3 years old. And for younger children, you may want to concentrate on the rhythmic flow. You may want to concentrate on that simply because that gets children moving. But as they grow older, you want to introduce them to prose and you want to introduce them to metaphors. So I encourage you to continue in the month of April by concentrating on poems and use the resources I recommend. We just recommended to you. So, all right, Angela, you're going to tell me how we can get more in touch with poems using Joyce Burgess's supplemental lessons.
Awesome. I am just first want to say I'm just so delighted to be back on this platform with you, lady. We are appreciative to just having this opportunity just to come back and do the things that we both love. So my job and my purpose, as it has always been, is to provide, in addition to Joyce's 30 plus years of homeschooling resources, is to provide how we can layer technology on top of that and staying with 21st century teaching methods, learning methods, even workplace tools and skills that our kids will learn and need going into the future. So what we have done is taken Joyce's supplements, because we want to start there as a base, because she has the research, she has the knowledge, as you just heard her beautifully explain. We want to take and start with those resources and get you connected through Google Classroom. We have been talking about Google for Education and how it's been open to homeschool groups, organizations. That is a free resource. It's a free resource. There's no reason why any of us should not be using it. It is what they use. It's kind of like commonplace now in educational settings, and we want our kids connected to that. We want you connected to it as parent educators, so you understand these technology tools that are being used for learning in this day and time, especially post-pandemic, when we completely get on the site, or, you know, the pandemic has changed everything. So we want to make sure that we understand how to use these tools for distance learning, or, you know, just to be up to speed. So one of the things we've done is we provided Joyce's supplements in form of a Google Classroom. If you are interested in learning more about that tool and how to access it electronically, then I'm asking that, and we're asking that you just reach out to her, let her know that you are interested in the digital format of these poetry supplements, and we'll get that information to you. And she can, there's a membership within NBHE that allows you access, right, Joyce, to these resources, and you can talk about that if you'd like to as well. But just get in contact with us and ask us for that piece of information. We want to commit to getting it to you. So that's
absolutely, absolutely. If you're a member of the National Black Home Educators, NBHE, Virtuoso family, you are privileged to this with your paid membership. Everyone else, if you would like to obtain a hard copy or an electronic copy of Joyce Burgess's poetry supplements, you can email Joyce, visit Joyce M. Burgess, JoyceM, B as in boy, URGES.com. And those poetry and more supplements are available through that website. So I encourage you to visit it. You know, these are just simple lessons. You know, homeschooling does not have to be hard. Once I was into my third, fourth year of homeschooling, I finally learned that it does not have to be hard. And I've been homeschooling 30 years. I've homeschooled my own 5 children and others. I've homeschooled at least 50, 60 other children that have come into my home, and they've used these supplements. And I'm telling you, not one of them was denied college or whatever entrepreneur apprenticeship that they wanted to go into. They were more than capable to be productive in furthering their education. So, and because of the basic things like poems, very basic, but it's a very powerful and impacting tool to help your child to become productive educationally, and to give them a love for learning, that it's a lifelong thing. Learning is lifelong. And parents, I want to help you relieve some pressure. You don't have to teach your children everything. Leave some space for them to seek out and explore and discover other things for themselves. You're just giving them a very basic grab, so to speak. Are you giving them a very foundation? You're giving them a foundation for what learning should be. What it should be and how it should help them as they grow. So if you have nothing else to say, Angela, I think we can end this session. If you have any questions or comments, please put them in the comment section of this social media page, or you can email us at contact@nbhe.net. So thank you for listening to us today.